You know that whole return to office debate? Well, I'm going to say it, it's over. But here's the crazy part. Most companies are getting it completely and totally wrong. They're trying to shove old school management styles into this new world, forcing these rigid schedules, and then they're scratching their heads wondering why their best people are secretly polishing up their resumes.
Okay, let's really get into this because this statement is so important. That whole Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office thing, it might feel like a fair compromise, right? But in reality, it's the worst of both worlds. All it does is create a chaotic commute schedule without giving anyone the real flexibility they need. It's basically a Band-Aid covering up much, much deeper problems in how we actually manage people. So why is this super popular model failing so spectacularly?
All right, so the first big reason it's failing has nothing to do with calendars or office space. Nope, it's about a hidden psychological trap that leaders are falling into every single day. It's called proximity bias, and trust me, it is silently poisoning your company culture.
Now this should be terrifying. What does it represent? In a lot of hybrid companies, the employees who physically show up to the office are a staggering 40% more likely to get promoted. Just let that sink in for a second. You could be doing the exact same quality of work, but someone else gets a massive career leg up just because they're physically there.
And here it is, the root of the problem. What makes this so tough to beat is that it's not logical, it's instinct. Our brains are literally hardwired to trust the people we see face to face, the people we grab a coffee with. It's a mental shortcut that's worked for thousands of years. But in today's workplace, that same instinct is creating this incredibly dangerous and unfair divide.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the result. You get a two-tier system. You have the in-crowd, who get all the spontaneous brainstorming sessions, the juicy projects, the critical benefit of the doubt, and then you have the out-crowd, who are left feeling totally invisible. And look, this isn't just about hurt feelings. This is a full-blown business crisis. This is exactly how you lose your best, most independent thinkers.
Okay, let's pivot to the second major problem. We basically tried to copy and paste the physical office online. And what do we get for our troubles? A brand new kind of misery. Just endless, back-to-back video calls that have led to massive, widespread burnout.
So the real issue here has a name. It's called synchronous default. It means for any little thing, our first instinct is to call a meeting. But why? Let's be honest. A lot of the time, it's not because we need a live discussion. It's because some managers don't actually trust their team is working unless they can physically see them on a Zoom call. It's surveillance pretending to be collaboration.
This quote just hits so hard. I mean, if you have ever been that one remote person on a giant TV screen in a conference room, you know this feeling deep in your bones. You're trying so hard to be part of it, but you can't read the whiteboard, you can't hear the side chatter. You are technically there, but you are not included. It's one of the most frustrating feelings in the world.
So what's the fix? It's adopting this simple but incredibly powerful rule. If you need that creative spark, if you're brainstorming, or if you're having a really sensitive conversation, yeah, get on a call. But if it's just a status update or sharing some info, that should be written down. It's not just about being more efficient, it's about respecting people's time and giving them the space they need for deep, focused work.
And now for the third big challenge, which is a direct result of this new world we're in. Your best people don't just want to work from home anymore. They want to work from anywhere. And while that is an amazing opportunity, it opens up a whole new can of worms that goes way beyond just shipping someone a laptop.
I love this question because it perfectly captures the dream and, well, the dread of modern leadership. On the one hand, heck yeah, offering that kind of freedom is a massive competitive advantage for attracting the best of the best. But on the other hand, for your HR and legal folks, it can trigger a full-on five-alarm panic. The answer is, it's both, and it forces companies into this minefield of tax law and legal issues.
Okay, this is the one that keeps CFOs up at night. It sounds really complicated, but let me break it down for you. Imagine your employee is working from an apartment in, say, Lisbon for half the year. From the Portuguese government's point of view, it kind of looks like you've just secretly opened a small, unofficial branch office in their country. And guess what? That little mini office now owes them corporate taxes. Ouch.
Burn this number into your brain. 183. In most countries, that's the magic line in the sand. If your employee stays somewhere for more than 183 days, that's roughly 6 months, they almost always become a tax resident there. This can become a double taxation nightmare for the employee and a huge compliance headache for the company.
So we've laid out the big problems. We've got bias, burnout, and a whole lot of bureaucracy. But you know what? Complaining is not a strategy. So let's shift gears and start building the solution.
This is the playbook for what's next, an outcome-first model that actually gets results.
This right here, this is the whole game. The entire mindset shift is on this slide. We have to stop asking, are my people at their desks, and start asking, are my people delivering results? Because if you can't answer that second question, you don't have a remote work problem. You have a management problem.
So, this new playbook, it stands on 4 really practical pillars. 1, you fight bias not with wishful thinking, but with structured, fair processes. 2, you make writing things down the default to level the playing field for everyone. 3, you make sure your tools are built for a digital-first world. And finally, number 4, you create clear, smart policies that give people flexibility without creating total chaos. And here are some tactics you could literally start using tomorrow. The one remote, all remote rule. It's simple. If one person is dialing in, everyone joins from their own laptop. It completely equalizes the experience. Move your daily stand-ups into Slack to give people back their focus time. Make digital tools like Miro the single source of truth, not a physical whiteboard. And try a 30-day workation policy. It's a brilliant way to give people that freedom they crave in a way that's safe and compliant.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one question. Every single leader has to answer this. The future of work isn't going to be about where people sit. It's going to be about what they achieve. The leaders who get that, who shift from policing presence to measuring performance, they're not just going to survive. They are going to win the war for talent. Period.